Welcome everybody for coming. Thank you for coming. This is an information session on the FLAS-Eligible summer programs run by the Stone Center for Latin American Studies at Tulane and the Center for Latin American Studies at Vanderbilt. And so the object of today is not to really give you a very in-depth look at any of the programs, but to briefly introduce you to what the program's kind of principles are, talk to you a little bit about what the planning process is this year now that everything is up in the air with the health situation, kind of what we're considering as we're deciding whether to keep these in-person programs in country or whether to move them online like we did last year. And then introduce a little bit about the funding that's available, the application process first, and then the funding that is available for you if you want to participate in one of these programs. So we'll start briefly with introductions and then move into the material. First of all, I'll introduce myself. My name is Hannah Palmer. I'm the program manager here at the Stone Center for Latin American Studies. I've been here for 1.5 years, so this is my 3rd cycle with the summer programs, or 2nd full cycle with the summer programs, and I really love being here. Before coming here, I was doing my graduate work at UNC Chapel Hill, where I was also working with less commonly taught languages, so I was thrilled to get the chance to continue that work here at Tulane. I also have 3 colleagues here from Tulane and from Vanderbilt, so I want to give them a chance to introduce themselves. So Val, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, everybody. This is Valerie Mcginley. I am the Director of Planning and Management for the Stone Center for Latin American Studies. And just quickly, I oversee these programs, both the FLAS and summer programs, and work really closely with Hannah and Dr. Jimmy Huck, if you ever are speaking with him. And looking forward to applying this year to one of our programs. Ishkanil.
Matheus Ishkanil. So Valerie and I share a Mayan birth date and birth name. I am Ishkanil Judith Maxwell. I run the Cachiquel part of the Maya Language Institute in Guatemala. And this will be the 34th year? Whatever. I'm not good at math. It's been a long time that we've been running the Cachiquel program in Guatemala. Last year was the first year that we've done it all online, but thanks to the wonderful support we had from Hannah and Valerie, it worked. And I'm hoping that we'll all get vaccinated and we'll be there this summer, but I would be the in-country or out-of-country program director for Cachiquel.
Excellent, thank you, Ishkanil. Alma, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hello, I'm Alma Paz San Miguel. I work at Vanderbilt Center for Latin American Studies. We've been working very closely with Tulane with the 2 programs, especially the Maya Language Institute. One of our instructions is in charge of the Quiche portion of the program. I've been to that community where the students go on during summer, but my role at Vanderbilt is more administrative. I make sure the students get paid and that Tulane gets paid, most of the time late. But it goes through, it doesn't fail. But all this is funded by the Department of Education, so it's good money. And all the students that go into these programs are completely in love with it. And I've been there with Val and with Judith. I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce Ishkanil. Yes, okay. Oops. And if later on there's questions about funding, I'll be here through the whole meeting. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you, Alma. We've got a pretty big, diverse group here today. A lot of people interested in summer in Brazil, but a decent number of Quiche and Cachiquel as well. So I just want to give a very brief overview. I'm going to share my screen. I have a little bit of a PowerPoint prepared and we'll go through that. And then we will really want to open up and give lots of time for questions for y'all to ask us anything that is on your mind. So give me a second here to find the right screen. Okay, can y'all see my screen? And we're sharing the presentation now? When? Okay. So real quick, we talked about the 3 programs that are FLAS eligible. These are summer intensive language programs, are the summer in Brazil and Sao Paulo, which has intermediate and advanced Portuguese. The Cachiquel program in Antigua, which is beginner, intermediate and advanced, and then the Quiche program, which starts out in Antigua and moves to Nahuatl and has beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Right now, as it stands today, we are hoping to hold the programs in country. But if we are not able to, and we'll talk a little bit about what the factors we are that we're considering as we're making that decision, we will hold all of these programs online. We did so last summer and it was very successful, and we've worked to try to enhance the model we had last summer to make it even better this year if it's something that we have to do. Regardless of whether you are in person or online, you're going to be working with programs that espouse kind of these key principles. So we want to have you working with native speaking instructors as much as possible. So that means your instructors in the Summer in Brazil program are from Sao Paulo, living in Sao Paulo. For the Quiche and Cachiquel programs, you're going to have one instructor who is from the US. So we have Anil here representing the Cachiquel program. And then you're going to have another group of instructors who are living in the community there and speak everyday Cachiquel or Quiche and have been working with us. And they are all incredible instructors that you can work with. The other thing that we try to give you in these programs is maximum language exposure, which means that they are very intensive programs. These are not programs if you want to go and cut class and explore the countryside in Brazil. There are other programs you can do that. But in this program, we really are trying to help you increase your language proficiency as quickly as possible. So we're giving you lots of classroom time, lots of extracurriculars you see down there to give you opportunities to use the language. We do try to create intimate classrooms experiences. We keep our teacher to student ratio really high. So most of your classes when you're doing your language learning are going to be you and a few other students. So you're going to have plenty of opportunities to work with these instructors. Both of these programs follow a model of learning language through culture, which means when you enroll, you're going to be enrolled in 2 courses. One is going to be a language course and one is going to be a culture course. The culture course, you're still going to use your target language. You're just going to be focusing on items, studying society, Brazilian society, or studying Mayan weaving practices, or whatever the topic is that day. You're going to be really looking at how the language is used in the day-to-day. And then again, both of these are FLAS eligible programs, which means that we meet the contact hour requirements for FLAS. When we go online, this can be very intense because we need 140 contact hours for each of you. But it's really important that we meet those requirements so that you can continue to use the grants and the fellowship funding to pay for the programs. So in person or online. Like I said, we want to hold them in person, but we're putting off the decision until the spring of 2021. We are hoping to have more guidance in February or March, but we're really looking at the Office of Study Abroad here at Tulane to kind of lead the way on making that call. So as we're making this decision, it's not an easy decision to make. We're following Tulane policies. We're looking at CDC health guidelines, and we're also taking into account Department of State travel advisories. If Tulane, the CDC, or the Department of State does not advise travel to any of these destinations, we cannot and will not go. We will go online. If all of these institutions say if the vaccine is well distributed, for instance, and things are opening up for travel, then we will do everything we can to get you abroad. If we do have to go online, the program will change a little bit, but these guiding principles won't change. You're still going to be working with your native speaking instructors. We worked hard to set up the infrastructure to make sure they have all the materials they need to work with you via Zoom primarily. You're going to meet via Zoom. We will have other materials available via Canvas or Google Docs. The schedule will not change much. You're still going to have very intensive schedule. It's going to be classes Monday through Friday. The Mayan Language Institute will remain 6 weeks, but the Summer in Brazil program, we are going to extend it to 8 weeks if we have to go online, a week earlier and a week later. And this is just to give you fewer classes in the afternoons. We found that the 6-week model worked really well for the Mayan Language Institute because of its intensivity, because the languages are so difficult to learn. Whereas with the Summer in Brazil program, the 6-week was just, it was too many hours of classes in a day. So we've decided if we go online, we're going to try to spread out. So there are some afternoons where you don't have classes and can kind of get caught up on some of the homework. But like I said, if we move online, we're still meeting those FLAS contact hours. That's part of the reason. It's a lot of Zoom time, but FLAS requires us to meet those 140 contact hours and also wants as many of them to be synchronous as possible, which means we have a lot of Zoom calls, Zoom. Awesome. The pricing, okay, moving online. The pricing is going to depend on the model and the enrollment. So you'll notice if you look at our program websites right now, I don't have an actual price listed. And that's because we won't know that until we make this decision on how we're going to teach the courses. In general, our pricing is composed of 2 components, tuition, and then a housing and or logistics fees. And each of these is specific to the program. We try to cap our tuition at $5,000 because that's the maximum limit allowed by FLAS. So we do everything we can to hold costs to under $5,000. But then your housing and logistics fee is going to depend upon the program. For instance, the Cachiquel program does not include housing. So we only have a logistics fee. So it's a lower fee than the housing and logistics fee that's included with the Quiche program, because the Quiche program includes all of your housing and a good portion of your meals. So that program fee is a little higher. With the Summer in Brazil program, your housing and logistics fee will cover your housing and 1 meal a day. The costs in general for the Summer in Brazil program are higher, and that's because Sao Paulo is an expensive city. And so it just costs a whole lot more to do things in Sao Paulo than it does to do things in Antigua, Guatemala. So we do try to keep costs as low as we can for y'all so that you are able to cover all of them with your FLAS fellowships. And the FLAS coordinators can talk a little bit more about what's in the FLAS fellowship and how it's divided and how that ends up mapping onto these different fees like tuition and fees, right? If we go online, obviously the programs are going to be cheaper because we aren't going to have housing. You're going to be living at your house, right? And tuition will likely be lower as well, just because the costs associated with the classes are lower. So when you see these ranges that I've put up there, and I've listed ranges for each of the program, keep this in mind that online will be lower. It may not be as low as the lowest listed here. And then the in-person will be more expensive, but it may not be as expensive as the highest I've listed here. I've tried to give myself a little bit of leeway in these estimates that I've given you so that we can find the price that is absolutely cheapest that we can do it and also gives you all of the services that we need to give you. Awesome. I'm just going to talk about one last thing, and then I'm going to turn it over to the FLAS coordinators. The last thing I have to talk about is the application. So often students get a little bit confused because there are 2 separate applications. One is for the FLAS fellowship and one is for the program. It's really important that you fill out both applications before the application deadline. Because if you fill out a FLAS and you're awarded a FLAS and you haven't filled out the program application, I don't have your information. And so a student thinks they're coming on the program, and in May, I know nothing about this student because they were awarded a FLAS with another institution, right? So it's really, really important that you fill out the program applications. They are not meant to be difficult or onerous. They're meant to allow you to reuse some of the same information that you put together for the FLAS application. I just need it in my system. So you can find it. We use this like Central Study Abroad program system, or excuse me, the Central Study Abroad system here at Tulane. So you've got the hyperlink there. You probably can't see the application, can you? You still seeing the PowerPoint? Yes? Okay. I'll go through it and then I'll show you really quickly. I'll go through the PowerPoint and then I'll show you the application really quickly. If you are, so you go to the Central Study Abroad website. If you're a non-Tulane student, you can easily create a guest login to go ahead and fill out that application. Once you log in to the once you go to the program, you find your program, you go to the brochure site, there's a little sticker that says apply now. Once you log in, you'll see all of the materials that you need to fill out. And it's a pretty quick process. It's a combination of basic questionnaires, a personal statement, a letter of recommendation, those sort of things, and then a few forms that you need to electronically sign. If you applied in 2020, I can react and did not attend the program. This happened. A few students decided that since we weren't going to be in person, they deferred their application. I forwarded those applications to the 2021 cycle. You just need to let me know that you want to apply. I'll reactivate them so that you can go in and update any information that's changed and fill out the one additional form I added this year, which is to let me know whether or not you're interested in the online version. So it's a question, are you interested in this program if it is held online? Yes or no, right? So that's the only other material we're asking for right now this year. The deadline, you have some time to apply. The deadline for application is Friday, March 5th. By then, hopefully we will have a lot more clarity about these programs. And you will have more clarity about the FLAS. Generally, FLAS deadlines are somewhat before that, so you'll know if you've applied. You may know if you got it or not. So note that you have some time, but go ahead and take a look at the application and make sure you don't have any questions before then. So real quick, I'm going to stop my sharing. I'm going to share the homepage so that you can see what this looks like. This is the study abroad application that you have here. I'm going to move it over to my other screen. There's where you log in. And you can choose Tulane login or non-Tulane login. If you do the non-Tulane login, please write down your information somewhere because you will need that throughout the entire process, right? Even after you've applied, there are other forms that are going to show up in your application pre-departure. So you're going to need to log in again using those credentials. So there are two ways of getting to the application. Honestly, the easiest would be just going to the Mayan Language Institute or the Summer in Brazil website and clicking apply here. And it will take you directly to the brochure. It has all of the program application, the very specific program application, and has the apply now button. Okay, takes you to the same login page. So there are a couple of ways you can do that. In the Office of Study Abroad, you have to go to search program by location or use one of their search functions. It takes a little bit longer. I suggest just going to the program website page and hyperlinking from there. Awesome. So that is all I have. I will turn it over now to Val, who will talk a little bit about the FLAS here at Tulane, and then Alma might be able to talk a little bit about the FLAS at Vanderbilt.
All right, everybody. Just a quick overview of the Summer FLAS Fellowship. I am not going to read all of these slides. We will have, I will tell you, we will have a more extensive FLAS webinar in January for those of you who want to apply to Tulane for a FLAS. My first piece of advice would be to first apply to your school. If you are not at Tulane and your school has a FLAS grant, please apply to them first and make sure you tell us that you're applying to them if you're also going to apply to us. We do not, you can apply to us also, and it's a good idea to do multiple applications, but we do ask that you let us know that you're applying to your home institution or all the institutions that you're applying for. We just ask you to tell us, because we do work together with all the FLAS coordinators around the country to try and get everybody who wants FLAS funding funded. You might not get a FLAS from one institution, but somebody else might have it. And even if it can even be an institution that that you didn't apply to, because we really do work really hard to distribute all the summer FLAS money. Who is eligible to apply? Just a quick note, you have to be a citizen or a national or a permanent resident of the US, and you have to be enrolled in a degree program. There are instances where people are in between degree programs, like in between the master's program and a doctoral program. That is acceptable also, even if you're changing institutions. And we work with you to get confirmation of your enrollment at the new institution. And then there's some other things too. You need to prove that you are studying. You need this language for your academic work. I have to, for those of you who are undergrads, please note you can only study at the intermediate or advanced. So you cannot, if you're an undergraduate, you cannot go on a summer FLAS fellowship. You cannot receive one if you're studying beginning level language. And this is, you can talk to us about it, ask me, email me later if you want to ask me more about that. The other thing about beginning level language is that graduate students can engage in beginning level language, but there are some rules around it. Please come to our webinar in January and we will tell you about it. But in general, it's for intermediate and advanced study in a less commonly taught language. So this is only for intensive language study. So for those of you who would like to go down and do research too, you have to plan your research either before or after, preferably after your language program. It would really help. Your summer fellowships can be used at a domestic program, and that's the person who's interested in Haitian Creole. That the FIU program is one of the programs that we encourage our students to take because it is FLAS eligible. And the overseas programs, which are our summer in Brazil and the Mayan Language Institute. These are the languages that we usually give summer FLAS fellowships for. So Portuguese, Haitian Creole, Cachiquel Maya, Quiche Maya. I don't think anybody else said they were interested in any other languages, but we do accept applications for other languages that we might not offer at Tulane for a summer FLAS fellowship. Okay, what do you get? You get up to $5,000 to pay for the academic program fee, or otherwise known as tuition cost of the program. That portion does not include any of the room, board, or travel. So that is, we will always see two numbers for our summer programs, and that's to help people with FLAS fellowships. The second part is your stipend or subsistence allowance, and everybody gets the same amount for this. It's $2,500. So that, at least for the Tulane programs, that is given, if you get a FLAS from Tulane, that is given to you, and you have to pay the Tulane housing and logistics fee. We take care of the tuition, that's all on us, and then you're in charge of paying the housing and logistics fee. If we are going abroad and if we have extra money, we often will make an additional travel or airfare awards up to $1,000 or the actual cost of an airline ticket. So we will see if there are any new regulations since the US just pulled out of some airline agreements, international airline agreements, but we'll make sure that we're up to date on what is approved by the U.S. Department of Education by the time you go on a program, if you get to fly. These are just, all our programs are eligible. This is just a quick note on where you can find information on other programs. You do have obligations, just, you know, you have to do all these things that I have listed on here, but the most important thing really is to participate in all official aspects of a program. Your job is to study the language, whether it be Brazilian Portuguese, Cacique Maya or Quiche Maya, and that's what you need to be doing for 6 or 8 weeks. It is not conducive to have a FLAS fellowship and also be working a job at the same time. I just want to put that out there as a warning. We found that a couple of students tried to do that last summer and really struggled to attend class. These are super intense if we go online, and just if you're abroad, you can't work anyway. So you're going to be totally immersed in the program. You do have to participate fully in the program of study, and you're going to have some reports to file to the U.S. Department of Education. And also we ask, please, that you participate in FLAS tracking surveys, because it tells the U.S. Department of Education that we are actually doing our jobs and that you're using the skills that you learned in our FLAS program for your work or for your future study or anything like that. Yeah, that's that. So these are the 2 names and our contact information. That's me, Valerie Mcginley, but we'll have all this stuff, all of it will be available on the website. I will tell everybody that the application for the Tulane FLAS is not available yet. It will be soon. The applications for the FLAS Fellowship will be due in mid-February. I know that for sure. So that information is coming out very soon. We are kind of finalizing, you know, just because of the uncertain nature of what's going on, we're finalizing forms and the timeline on how everything is going to take place. And I know some of you at Tulane might also be interested in applying for Tinker field research funding. We'll go over all that with you, Jimmy and I, next month also, because you can apply to both, but you can't get both. You have to do one or the other. So Alma, I don't know if you have anything to add about Vanderbilt, because you all have some students here.
Yes, Genevieve is here. Same thing. The application is not out yet, should be out in the next weeks. We'll send an email to all of our LAS students with the link. We definitely encourage everyone to apply to their own universities, like Val said, and then we'll make sure if there's funding left, we make sure it's used. So Valerie is always asking who has funding, and we pitch in. Somehow it works out. Yes, I hope you all get to go to the countries you want to go and study language, because it's wonderful. And best of luck.
Thank you. Yes, we all have our fingers and toes crossed that we can travel. So right now we just want to open it up to any questions that you have about the programs or about the FLAS. We really wanted to bring everybody together here so that we could tackle any question that came our way. So, yep.
And if you'd rather ask in chat, go ahead. We'll monitor those too if you don't want to say anything.
I have a question. We have a question about subsistence funding if we're in the States. So, you know, if us in like graduate programs, we're going to run out of funding in May. So we've been thinking about how we're going to pay rent and stuff, like when we're doing either a FLAS fellow or at home field research, if you can call it field research. What is the intel on that? Thank you.
So if you get a FLAS fellowship, you receive the $2,500 no matter what. That you are we are obligated to do that. So all our FLAS fellows who did it online last summer We paid the tuition and they received a payment for $2,500. Like, it's basically, that was your allowance. For the field research, that has yet to be seen, but I will just tell you that you have a lot of advocates working on that for you.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. And Antonio asks if the structure and experience of the program is the same for grad and undergrad students. For all of these programs, yes. Graduate and undergraduate students study together, they take the same courses, they interact with each other. We've talked a little bit about maybe, we are looking at an extra add-on that would be specifically geared toward undergraduate students, but we haven't put that in place yet. So as of right now, everything is exactly the same. And structurally, the programs in their core treat all of the students the same.
I had a question regarding, for example, if either program, but specifically the Brazil program, not regarding FLAS, but just the program itself. In order to apply the program, you still have to be you always have to be a student, right? Like, this is not something like anyone can apply for, right? Just making sure.
Yes, you have to be a student, but like Val said, you can be in between degrees.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are going from your undergraduate degree to your master's degree and you have proof of being accepted and committing to that program, then you're welcome to apply.
Perfect, thank you. And then my second question was regarding, for example, housing preferences. Let's say, like, fingers crossed, for 2021, where we are allowed to travel outside the country. What's the difference between like undergrad and grads? Like, I know you said they have the same experience, but in terms of housing also, would it be like the same preference? Like, do some stay with a host family and some stay with university students?
Yes. So in Brazil, we have housing in apartments with university students or housing with host families. In general, we allow students to express their preferences. We can't guarantee that students will get their preference. It'll depend on enrollment, but students will be able to choose between the two.
Thank you.
No problem.
I was wondering if we apply this year and it goes online, can we defer to next year?
I'll answer that since Genevieve is a Vanderbilt student. We will need to defer graduation for you. We've done it in the past, but I don't know what the policy will be this time. We will need to talk to Avery about it.
Does that also apply for Tulane students?
Yes. It really depends. We go on an individual basis and working really closely with your graduate advisor, obviously Jimmy Huck.
Yeah, from a program perspective, I'm happy to defer applications this year if you don't want to go online. That's very easy from the program. It's the funding that becomes a little more complicated. Are there any other questions?
I will tell you, we are really intensely planning both right now. At least for Brazil, we're working on mostly Brazil right now, and in discussions with, beginning discussions with our Mayan Language Institute. So it's not like we prefer to do one or the other. We actually prefer to send you all into the field. All of us are advocates of being in the field. All of us are very sad that we haven't been able to get into the field, but we consider your health and all those risks are much more, we need to take everything into consideration, and we will make the best, decision with the university. And they do, we do talk to them. We are in discussions with the provost's office all the time, and we're involved with this. So, we're trying our best, and we try to create the best experience for language learning that we can for you, whether it's online or in person.
Yes, echoing all of that. Are there any, Javier, did you have a question? I saw your hand.
Yeah, I was a little curious. I saw that in the presentation, it was saying that you can apply to another language that's like outside of like Maya Quiché, Cachiquel, or Portuguese. So how does that work exactly? Like, do you have to apply through a different institution or what, you know, I'm just curious about that.
Sure. You need to, first of all, you should find a program for the language that you want to do. Doing a self-design program is a possibility, although it's very challenging. I'd encourage you, if that is the case, if there's not an official program, then I suggest that you come talk to Jimmy and or we have a meeting immediately. I had posted, and there's a link on last year's description of the Floss Summer Fellowship. The Consortium of Latin American Studies Programs, CLASP, produces a language list of all FLAS-eligible summer programs that people submit their information about. So that is pretty much the definitive list of what programs qualify. And honestly, Javier, if you tell either Hannah, Jimmy, or I, actually, or probably Hannah and I mostly, if you have a language, we can probably tell you whether there's a program off the top of our head and who does it, because we've been doing this for so long. And it's a small community.
I have a question. So if you will apply for the FLAS, does that mean that the application for the summer in Brazil is it free? Because I saw that we have to like inform that we will be applying to the FLAS for it to be free or something.
Yes, my apologies. In general, there's an application fee, but we waived the application fee for FLAS students this year because everything is up in the air. We're not asking an application fee of anyone. So I've taken that off of the application. You don't need to worry about that fee at all. It won't show up until, well, for FLAS students, it will never show up. For non-FLAS students, we'll ask for a commitment deposit down the line. Antonio had another question. Is there alternative funding for graduate students who are not eligible for FLAS?
Not at this time. That's all I can say. We just not at this time, although we would love to work on it. We have discussed it.
Yeah, it's a problem that's on our radar, right? It's a problem that's on our radar.
I have a follow-up question about language level. So you mentioned that undergrads are only eligible to apply for intermediate and advanced programs, but that grad students can apply for beginning level programs, but that there's kind of another workaround you have to do. So what do you have to do if you want to apply at the beginning level?
So in order to, you have to prove that you are proficient in another language of the area. So if you are already proficient in Spanish or Portuguese and you apply to study beginning level Cachiquel, then you can qualify. Even French too can qualify. We have to, although that needs to be approved by the program manager, and that's also something that you work really closely with Jimmy Huck on.
Okay, great, thanks.
Any other questions?
Everybody's getting dark. It's funny. Like the sun was setting, everyone was bright in the beginning.
I had the spotlight for a while. There's no way I can escape the light in this room. Awesome. Well then, thank you everyone for coming. Wish you the best of luck with any finals that you have left over. I think most of you are done, but good luck if you've got any outstanding papers. And then I hope to see some of your applications coming in for the programs this summer.